But when I started to learn and research our rhythms, I realized sleep is absolutely the most underrated superpower we have as humans. When I realized this, the rest of my life started. And I can promise you, when you lean into your uniquely God-designed sleep rhythm and you do this consistently, you will feel like a completely new person. And guess what? That is the person that God designed you to be. Welcome to the Rhythm Restoration Podcast, the show rooted in scripture and scientific research, where you will learn to achieve maximum success in your business and personal life by actually working less hours. You will conquer burnout, find your purpose, restore your passion, and be more productive than ever. If you think it's too good to be true, it's not. It's exactly how God designed our bodies. And the science of our rhythms has actually been around for over 7 decades. But no one has ever looked at it through a biblical lens until now. Hi, I'm your host, Liz Bagwell, a published scientist turned healthcare executive, wife and mom of 3, who burned out at the top and found my purpose at rock bottom. Follow along with me as I leave everything behind in pursuit of helping others restore God's design for their personal lives and businesses. This will be raw, the good, the bad, and the ugly of what it's like when you stop running and start living in pursuit of what truly matters. Together, you'll cultivate a more balanced, joy-filled life, gaining the peace and freedom only found when leaning into God's design for your mind, body, heart, and soul. We've always had such a love-hate relationship, me and sleep. As a young child, I struggled with night terrors and sleepwalking. There were many, many times I slept on the floor of my parents' room until nearly middle school. I'd fall asleep and then wake up about 12:30 and just lay there and watch the clock above my head thinking, okay, if it's 12:30 and I go to sleep right now, I'll get 5.5 more hours. My mind would wander. I'd get close to falling asleep. And then suddenly I'd be terrified that I'd have another nightmare. But then I also knew I needed the sleep to function the next day. I'd look up 1:45. Okay, if I go to sleep right now, I'll get 4 hours and 15 minutes. Most nights, to try to get us to sleep, our mom gave my brother and I Benadryl. Remember, this was the late 80s, early 90s. So this is pre-melatonin craze. Like I said, I'd usually wake up around midnight and sometimes be so terrified that I wouldn't finally fall asleep until 3 a.m. and then up at 6. This went on for years and years. And looking back now, I was likely continuing to have night terrors and bad nightmares because of the trauma during the day, and then sleepwalking because of the sleep deprivation, or maybe it was the Benadryl, who knows. Side note, your girl loves a good nap. I love a nap. Even then, I think I loved a nap. But fast forward to being an adult. I felt like night sleep was the biggest inconvenience to my success, both professionally and personally. I had so much on my plate. Sleeping was just not one of those things. Climbing the corporate ladder as an executive, studying for my MBA, having and raising babies, starting my side photography business to pay for my MBA and other bills. I didn't have time for sleep, or at least I didn't think I had time for sleep. But when I started to learn and research our rhythms, I realized sleep is absolutely the most underrated superpower we have as humans. When I realized this, the rest of my life started. And I can promise you, when you lean into your uniquely God-designed sleep rhythm and you do this consistently, you will feel like a completely new person. And guess what? That is the person that God designed you to be. Welcome to the Rhythm Restoration Podcast. I'm your host, Liz Bagwell. This is episode 8 and our second episode in our series on restoration of the body. Last episode, we started our series with the nervous system and discussed how it connects our brain to our body. We identify the vagus nerve as the holy grail of the nervous system due to its immense ability to quickly turn on our parasympathetic nervous system and bring quick restoration to our rhythms by decreasing cortisol levels flowing through our bodies. We are continuing with the body, and I'm devoting today's entire short episode to sleep. But I feel like this is such an important and life-changing topic, if you can't tell, that I'm actually breaking it up into 2 episodes. And in a few weeks or a month or so, I'll be bringing on a sleep expert. So be sure to tune back in. There are many great things about this specific episode, and one of which, as a scientist, was there is so much data out there. It is, of course, our most widely known rhythm, the sleep-wake circadian rhythm. And so, of course, there's a plethora of data at our fingertips. Quick quiz. Do you recall from one of the very first episodes who my very favorite sleep researcher was? He was named the father of sleep studies, Nathaniel Kleitman, who not only helped discover REM sleep, but remember, he also discovered the sleep-wake cycle's lesser-known cousin, and my favorite, the ultradian rhythm. If I'm putting on my researcher hat for a second, I cannot imagine being in that lab, how exhilarating it must have been to be studying a specific pattern, the sleep-wake circadian rhythm, only to, in the process, identify something like the ultradian rhythm, which is just as powerful for our body and so important to our longevity. Of course, research has come a long way since Kleitman began in the 1950s, but a few things have still remained consistent since then. And here is what they are. If you do not get a minimum of 7 hours, and some of us, like myself, need more than that, you are at a greater risk of the following: dementia, heart attack, stroke, obesity, type 2 diabetes, depression, other mood disorders, impaired immune function, on and on and on. And recent studies have also said a greater risk of cancer, and I 1,000 bazillion quadrillion % stand by this. And that's not an exhaustive list. Let's dig in for a bit at a very, very high level on why this matters before we jump into scripture. Genetically speaking, there are a fair amount of you walking around every single day at a much greater risk of diseases and disorders that I mentioned, just simply because you were born. So knowing this, isn't it great news that you can decrease your risk by doing something as simple as sleeping? But remember, you got to sleep within your rhythm. This also means that even if you eat all organic, healthy whole foods, you exercise religiously, but you still have poor sleeping habits, you are completely undermining all of that hard work. I get so incredibly frustrated when I see influencers, especially well-known executives, gloating about how the fact that they wake up at 3 or 4 to start their day. Please tell the rest of the world that you also go to sleep at 7 or 8 in order to be as productive and on your game. But that's the piece that they miss. And so I feel so bad that the general public doesn't see that. And they just think, oh, I should wake up at 3 or 4 and maybe I'll be more productive. Absolutely not, unless you're going to sleep at 7 or 8. Now, it is obvious what effects these diseases and disorders will have on your body, but let's take a minute, as we do from time to time, and discuss why this matters from a business perspective. Whether you own a business or you are an employee or a manager or director, or honestly, even a parent to tiny humans, let's think about it. First, we'll talk about it from a business employee perspective. I personally see 2 major reasons why sleep is critical to your business. There are many, but these are my top 2 personally that I feel. Number 1, mental alertness and creativity. I've never heard this, honestly, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. And I will definitely not be the first, probably, or the last, but I've lived this. There is absolutely no substitute on earth, be it immense levels of caffeine, Adderall, CoQ10, you name it, that compare to what your brain can do for you when you are consistently following your God-given sleep-wake cycle. All of my best ideas, all of the most complex problems that I've ever solved, All of those things all came when I was consistently following my God-given sleep-wake cycle. Therefore, as a business owner, an executive, an employee, a manager, if you want to be on top of your game in your industry and be ahead of your competitor and gain that market share all the time, you must prioritize sleep and shift the way you think of it. It is not an inconvenience. It is a superpower. Use it. Number 2, missed work. Can you tell I'm passionate about this? Missed work. This one goes without saying, and it's a little more obvious, but lack of sleep results in a decreased immune system and missed profits. But on top of that, if you are an employee and you're in a situation where maybe you feel pressure to work when you're sick because everybody else does, or you're a business owner and you just work because you're the only employee and you don't want to miss those profits, I want you to know that if you continue in these poor sleep patterns, this will throw off your body and all of your hundreds of thousands of rhythms even further. And you're just going to feel like you can never get ahead. And that's why you're messing with your rhythms, friend. Going back to being a parent. And honestly, I can say this as a business owner. I can say this as an exec with my executive hat, or being an employee. Having been all of those, I will tell you how incredibly important and powerful it is to model good sleep habits that you set for your children and your employees and yourself, because it will absolutely set them up for a good future and great success. So that's as technical as I'm going to get for today. As the episode in a month or so with our sleep expert, we will get more granular with regard to our rhythms and how they affect different parts of our bodies and our longevity. Now, when I researched sleep from a biblical perspective, I found one person who put it so well. They said, "The human need for sleep is a reminder of our limitations and dependence on the Lord." At first listen, you might be like, okay, well, that's not, what does that have to do with me? I mean, yes, but okay. But let me say it again, because there's so much truth there, and I'll tell you why in a moment. So it was Don Wilson who said, "The human need for sleep is a reminder of our limitations and dependence on the Lord." Here is what I feel like Don is getting to. When we sleep, God works to rejuvenate, rest, and heal our bodies for greater efficiency during our wake hours. And as children, when we're children, that's actually when we grow the most. And when we absorb the most is when we're able to have really good sleep. Who knows where I would be, guys, if I had really great sleep as a kid. But we spend a third of our lives sleeping. A third of our lives sleeping. What else can you think of outside of sleep that you do for a third of your life? Can you think of anything? Like consistently, like hours wise? Do you think God would have made us that way if he didn't think the need for sleep was critical to every facet of our life? I really feel like even if it was like a fifth, it would still be critical. But a third, that's a lot. Now, there are countless places in the Bible where sleep is mentioned. I'm not going to go through all of those because I would be on here for like 2 hours. But I want to talk about the first 2, or really just the first one. But the first 2 happen in the story of creation, as we know. How beautiful is it that God himself rested? As a child and really as a young adult, I absolutely did not get why that mattered at all. It was like, okay, God rested. But take a step back and think about it for a moment. In my heart, I feel like he didn't need to rest. God didn't need to rest, but he did it. And it was documented to remind people like myself who have spent the majority of their lives feeling like sleep was an inconvenience, that if it is important enough that God himself did it, and he created me, and he created me with a need to spend a third of my life sleeping, well then, sweet dreams, my friend. But before I go, At the end of every episode, I share a biohack or pearl of wisdom from my experiences. For starters, no Benadryl. But in all seriousness, if you recall earlier in the episode, I shared that as a child, I'd often wake up in the middle of the night. And from time to time, even when I'm within my rhythm, I still do. I used to be terrified. What does this mean? What is wrong with me? Or what's going on in my head? And during this time, I would count the hours, of course, or minutes that I would have left until one day, everything changed with this thought. And I hate that I cannot remember the source because it's been so many years. But I read somewhere someone say, next time you wake up in the middle of the night, instead of stressing and counting down those hours that you have left, think about it as an invitation from God to just lay quietly in His presence. Breathe deeply and just imagine a happy place. Mine is a beautiful wildflower garden where you were either just sitting there waiting patiently on God or you're sitting there with Him in silence. And if you throw in a good ocean breathing exercise, you might be back to sleep in no time. Or maybe, just maybe, God wanted you to wake up just a little bit and have that quiet time with Him so that He could provide a peace that transcends all understanding, regardless of your circumstances, or to answer a long-awaited prayer. Did you know that one of the biggest secrets to come out recently, and it's really not even just a secret, it's a true biohack to living a longer life, and this is scientifically proven, because otherwise I would not be saying it, is human connection, that true human connection that we all long for. So let's really connect, and I mean it. I cannot wait to go on this journey with you and help discover and restore your individual rhythm and life. You can find me on Instagram at LizBagwell7 or head on over to my website, rhythmrestoration.co, that's .co, not .com, where I share all things life, family, other biohacks, and simple ways to lean into God's true design for your life. It would mean the world to me if you could share this episode with a friend, family member, or coworker, or all three, and if you left me a review on your favorite podcast app. Thank you truly from the bottom of my heart for listening to the Rhythm Restoration Podcast. All my light and love, Liz.